Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, good evening, everyone. And I will bring the meeting of July 19th, 2021 of the San Carlos Planning Commission to order. And first is the Pledge of Allegiance. And we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll join me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Iacopone.
Present.
Commissioner Garvey.
Present.
Commissioner Bradley.
Present.
Vice Chair Clements. Vice Chair Clements. I thought I saw her.
I saw her.
Oh.
I see that she's on, but she doesn't seem to have a, yeah, maybe her phone needs to be unmuted.
Oh, maybe she's calling it.
Yeah, I see her name and a phone number.
Yeah. Commissioner Clements.
So it looks like her audio is not connected. She may be connecting from a cell phone or a different device.
Can you unmute, Sarah, the phone number ending in 3161? (415) beginning area code? Yeah.
Hi, Commissioner
Press
Clements
*6.
is present. Thank you. You figured it out.
Great.
I'm
Okay.
having technical difficulties.
Okay, I'll wrap this up. Chair Ruth.
Present. Okay, the next part of our meeting is the public comment, and the public comment is limited to items that are not on the agenda. The commission may briefly respond to statements or questions posed as allowed by the Brown Act. However, the commission's general policy is to refer items to staff for attention or to have a matter placed on a future commission agenda for a more comprehensive action or report. Is there anyone in the waiting room who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? If there is, you can raise the hand icon on the bottom of your screen, or you can press *9 on your phone. Sarah, is there anyone in the waiting room?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Oh, yes, we do have one.
Hello.
Gail Goose.
Gail, welcome. This is the section of the meeting for items that are not on the agenda, and you have 2 minutes.
So I lowered my hand, and
okay.
and my name is pronounced Gose. So that's probably why I didn't recognize it last time.
Okay.
So it's Gail Gose.
So would you like to respond to an item that's on the agenda?
Well, I'll wait. I'll wait
Okay.
till you.
When we get to that point. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the next part of our meeting is the approval of minutes from the July 6th, 2021 meeting. Does anyone have changes to the minutes?
None from me.
None from me.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I will move for approval of the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting of July 6th, 2021.
I will second.
Wonderful. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Iacopone.
Yes.
Commissioner Garvey.
Yes.
Commissioner Bradley,
Yes.
Vice Chair Clements,
Do we lose her again?
oh, she's raising her hand. I see.
Oh, I had that in the RDRC. It signifies a vote yes. Is it a thumbs up sign?
It looks like a raised hand. Sarah, is there a way to allow Commissioner Clements to connect to audio? I'm not quite sure what's happening.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Now we can.
Commissioner Clements.
It's a miracle. Yes. Thank you.
And Chair, I should say Vice Chair Clements. Sorry about that. And then Chair Roof.
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Okay. The next part of our meeting is the public hearing. The procedure for a public hearing: staff will present a report on the history, physical features, etc. on the application, followed by the staff's recommendations. The applicant will make a presentation. Thereafter, interested members of the community may speak on the proposal. When all interested parties have had an opportunity to be heard, the hearing will be closed and no further discussion from the floor can be held. The commission will then consider the evidence and make its recommendation. If you challenge a public hearing item in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described in this notice, the public notice, or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to the public hearing. Speakers should state their name prior to addressing the commission. This was the staff in preparing the minutes. To start off, for the first item is the 987 Commercial Street topic. Does the staff have a presentation to start?
Thank you. Good evening. Lisa Costa-Sanders, Principal Planner. I'll be giving the staff presentation. The proposed Alexandria Center for Life Science project. Next slide. The purpose of the EIR CEQA scoping hearing process is to introduce the proposed project, inform the community and agencies of the initiation of the environmental impact report process, solicit input on the scope and content of the EIR analysis, and highlight future input opportunities. Just to give you a context of the location, the former Kelly Moore, the subject site is the former Kelly Moore and L3 communications site. It's just over 25-acre area located between Industrial Road, Commercial Street, Old County Road, and Pulgas Creek. The site is zoned heavy industrial and located in the planned industrial general plan land use designation. The site is about a half mile from the Caltrain station for an 11-minute walk. The proposed project entitlements include plan development zoning and a plan development plan, design review, tentative parcel map, tree removal, grading and dirt haul, transportation demand management plan, and a development agreement. And these entitlements require review by the Planning Commission with the ultimate decision being made by the City Council. Give you a brief overview of the project. As I indicated, the total site area is over 25 acres in area, and the project proposes a total floor area ratio of 2.15, which includes the building areas as well as the parking structures. The proposed campus includes 6 new research and development buildings, totaling 1.5 million square feet of gross floor area for the purposes of this CEQA analysis. The project also includes 2 parking structures at 8 floors each, totaling just over 850,000 square feet. New landscaped areas totaling 6.6 acres in area, and that includes a central open space and a single-story 7,674 square foot community building. The applicant also proposes landscape improvements along Pulgas Creek and a community access trail. They also propose improving Industrial Road, Commercial Street, and Old County Road frontages with new sidewalks, bike lanes, landscaping, and undergrounding utilities. So just to review the site plan, you'll see Old County Roads on the left, Commercial Street is at the top of the screen, Industrial Road to the right, and then Pulgas Creek runs along the bottom. So starting on the Old County Road side, the first building there, B6, is proposed as 5 floors. Right adjacent to that is PG1, which is 8-floor parking structure. And working our way inward to the site, we step up in height a bit. So the building labeled as B5 is proposed as 7 floors. Building B1, which is mislabeled, should be building B4, closest to Commercial Street, is proposed at 5 floors. And then next to that along Commercial Street is PG2, parking garage 2. As I indicated, that is proposed at 8 floors. And then inboard of that to the center of the site, B7 is proposed as the amenity building, single story. And there you see also that central landscaped area. Just adjacent to that is B3, proposed at 6 floors. And then working our way towards Industrial Road, we have building B2 proposed at 5 floors, and as well at the corner, building B1 also proposed at 5 floors. The next is a proposed section view taken through the site. So this view starts at the 8-story building on the left side of the screen at Old County Road, and that's the 8-story parking structure, and then works your way towards the center of the site, where you see the 6- and 5-story buildings. And then it also shows the recently completed Alexandria building across the street along Industrial Road. The applicant proposed the development in phases. So phase 1 would include 2 R&D buildings and 1 parking structure along the Old County Road frontage. The second phase in the middle of your screen shows the development mostly on the Commercial Street frontage. And that includes 2 research and development buildings, the amenity building, and that second parking structure. And then the final phase includes the remaining 2 R&D buildings located along Industrial Road, as well as the complete landscape improvements along Pulgas Creek. The streetscape improvements will follow each phase of development. So it'll start with the complete improvements along Old County Road, and then start wrapping around Commercial Street with the second phase, and then complete Industrial Road with the third phase. Each phase is anticipated to be constructed in 2-year increments. I will now turn it over to Rebecca Auld from Lanfear Gregory. She is assisting the city with preparation of the environmental impact report. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm just going to go over pretty quickly the purpose, process of the environmental review, and then what we've done so far and what we plan to do. So the purpose of reviewing a project under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, is to analyze and disclose the potentially significant environmental effects of that project, to identify the ways to avoid those effects, either through mitigation measures or alternatives, and also provides opportunity for input. The environmental document is informational. It does not itself approve or deny a project. However, compliance with CEQA is required prior to consideration of project approvals. Next slide, please. So the scope for environmental analysis of this project is to look at the potential effects from the subject site, the proposed project program, as well as the cumulative assessment of all the projects in the area that either have been recently approved, submitted, or shared in concept, otherwise proposed, especially in the East Side Innovation area. As with many environmental analysis projects, we began with an initial study to look at all of the topics under CEQA and focus further analysis. Next slide, please. So that initial analysis of all the topic areas was issued as an initial study on June 29th. That's the phase we're currently in now, where the public and agencies are reviewing that document and commenting on scoping. The scoping is intended to further identify any environmental issues that there might be from the project, as well as recommendations for mitigation measures or alternatives that might reduce or avoid those impacts. We're going to take the analysis of the initial study and the comments during scoping and complete further technical analysis, which will then be issued in what's called an environmental impact report, or EIR. The draft EIR goes out and it's reviewed for 45 days again by public and agencies who are asked to comment on that draft EIR analysis. We'll respond to any comments we received, written responses in a final EIR, which will also potentially inform any revisions to the previous analysis from the EIR, the draft EIR. That combined as the EIR for the project will go before the Planning Commission for recommendation and then to City Council for decision. City Council must certify the EIR as complete and accurate before any actions can be taken on the project. Next slide, please. So that initial study, the bullet points here identify all the different topic areas that we took a look at, and the circled ones are those which we identified for further study in the EIR. I'll go into those in more detail. Next slide, please. So we're going to quantify the emissions and the community risk related to air quality and greenhouse gases. We'll quantify employee travel related to transportation and traffic, assess the proposed site access and the safety of that, and additionally consider the service levels on the roadway network. While from a state level, this has been largely removed from environmental analysis, it will help to inform potential improvements to that roadway network. Next slide. We'll look at the aesthetics of the project, present additional visual models, and compare those to applicable regulations and visual character of the area. We'll assess the housing pressures from the employers proposed to be in the area and how that relates to population and housing, and also assess the demand and capacities for utilities and public services. Next slide. So while we're still within the scoping period right now and are still accepting additional comments, based on the interest that has been expressed so far, either for this project and/or as part of the Eastside Innovation District or other projects within it, we now intend to also pull some additional topics into the EIR to allow for further discussion. The original topics were shown with the blue circles, and the additional topics are now shown with the orange circles here. I'm going to talk about those in more detail on the next slide, please. So we plan to expand the discussion of the adjacent creek biology, expand the assessment of potential for underground cultural or tribal cultural resources, and expand on the discussion of the existing site contamination and remediation efforts. Next slide. The 30-day review period ends on July 28th. So that they can be taken into account during preparation of the EIR. The comments on the initial study and the scope or content of the EIR are accepted within 30 days from issuance of the initial study, and that is until 5 p.m. on July 28th. These would go to Lisa Koster-Sanders, who I will give the presentation back to at this point.
Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate that overview. So as indicated, we're going to receive comments as this evening's hearing. So that's really the purpose of this meeting, is to receive comments from the Planning Commission as well as from the public. So any verbal or written comment will be included for consideration in the draft EIR. This is not the time to really respond to questions unless it's just kind of process and procedural, but more the opportunity for us to listen and to hear from the community on the content of the EIR. And then for the next slide, I'll just briefly walk through those next steps. So at the conclusion of this meeting, we'll prepare all those scoping comments and finalize preparation of the draft environmental impact report. As Rebecca indicated, that will be available for a 45-day public review period. And during that 45-day review period, we will also have a public hearing on that draft EIR at the Planning Commission. So an additional opportunity for the Planning Commission to review the project and to hear community input. From there, we'll take all those comments, prepare the final EIR, as well as respond to any comments received. This may include additional technical analysis as warranted. And then have a Planning Commission hearing on that final EIR, as well as reviewing of the project, with a recommendation for the City Council to make a decision on the final EIR, as well as on the project. That concludes the staff presentation. We'd be happy to take any comments from the Commission.
Are there questions from the planning commissioners for the staff or the applicant?
I have a few comments, but I think for me personally, I'd like to wait and hear what the public has to say, and then maybe build on that or comment after that's finished. That's my personal preference.
Okay. Let me see. I see there's a raised hand. And or is there? Kristen Clement. Commissioner Clements, did you have a comment at this point in time?
For staff, if that's okay.
Yes.
Chair Roof, thank you. I just wanted to, if we could go back to the slide about the L's that are being analyzed in the EIR. I know there are different ways. I'm interested in the jobs, housing balance, and I'm interested in the different ways that one can analyze. That's great. The population and housing, that's fine. And analyze that issue. And I'm wondering if staff can comment about the approach that the EIR is taking or note.
Rebecca, did you want to respond to that?
Sure. So I think that's one of the issues that we have not constrained ourselves in how to analyze it at this point. We do know that we want to look at the cumulative effect of the various developments that are being proposed in the area. And then how it relates, we look at usually city and area plans for how much housing and how much employment was assumed in the area and where that was assumed, and do a comparison there. But the exact scope and what that analysis will look like has not fully been decided at this point.
And we'll be coordinating closely with the consultants working on the focused general plan housing element update as well to inform this analysis.
Got it. And so when you look at the housing plans and, transportation linkages, I assume, to get to the housing through our community, are you looking just at San Carlos? Are you looking at the peninsula? What's the scope of how you think about this for purposes of CEQA? And I know that CEQA is its own whole body of law and knowledge, and it is not necessarily what, a rational human walking off the street would necessarily analyze things like. I know it's a very specific look at things sometimes.
So I would say we look at both of those things. So we most definitely look at it on a local city level, but then also regional plans really inform it, since there is a lot of movement between cities in the Bay Area. So that includes plans such as Plan Bay Area and the larger plans.
Okay.
So we'll look at both of those kind of separately as well as together.
Thank you. So along with Commissioner Garvey, would like to hear what the public is interested in and may have additional to that. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions from the commissioners right now, then we can open for comments from the public. You can use the hand icon at the bottom of your screen or press *9 on your phone. And Sarah, to give me an idea, how many people do we have in the waiting room?
Currently, we have one.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll have for the moment, we'll have a 3-minute time period per person. And if you could activate that caller, and the caller, if you could state your name.
And through the chair, if we could maybe just have the applicant is present, we'd just like to make a quick introduction.
Oh, sure.
The applicant does not have a formal presentation. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped the applicant presentation. So with the applicant, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good
Welcome.
evening, commissioners. Good evening, chair. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Teresia Nemeth. I'm Executive Vice President with Alexandria Real Estate Equities. I've been working on this project since the beginning, and actually was working on the project we just completed at 825-835 Industrial. And we hope to be able to show that to you, to members of the public, very soon as people are comfortable going in person to visit the site. and I'm really just here anxiously to hear what the public has to say, but more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
And thank you. So maybe now we can go to the caller.
Yes, Debbie Balbocci.
Yes,
Hello, Debbie.
Hi, how are you?
Good. You have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I submitted belatedly a written public comments, and I would appreciate it if you would incorporate those into the record so you can see that for more detail. But just to summarize, we're interested in the primary thing we're interested in, and this is a lot of people in my community that live on Pulgus Creek. We're worried about the impact of the building on flooding in Pulgus Creek and the amount of development in FEMA flood zone and in very contaminated soils. So here are the main things we hope you will focus on. Number one, deny any creek setbacks for the 25-foot creek back limit. Number two, deny any underground basements or parking due to the shallow water tables and the fact that it is a FEMA flood zone. Number three, have the EIRs include a more detailed hydrology assessment that addresses the possible increased risk of flooding, specifically risk caused by building large underground structures directly into the shallow water table, 1 foot from the surface on many of the properties, more frequent king tides, and San Carlos's lack of sufficient levees and inadequate prevention infrastructure, such as outdated storm drain, sewer pumping stations near Pulgus Creek into Smith Slough. Number four, have EIRs assess the possible physical and environmental impacts on Pulgus and Britton Creekside property owners who live upstream from the development, whose properties may suffer significant damage from flooding, runoff, or creek bank erosion caused by development that may block, impede, or slow stormwater runoff from Pulgus and Britton Creek into Smith Slough. Number five, have EIRs address the likelihood that the development could cause ground subsidence, projected to be almost 20 inches, and increase the risk of east side and creekside flooding that could cause low-lying residential areas in San Carlos along Britton and Pulgus Creek to be designated as FEMA flood zones in the future, which would require property owners to carry prohibitively expensive flood insurance. This recently happened in the city of San Mateo and Redwood Shores. Number six, have EIRs assess the likelihood of damage to existing underground infrastructure, such as sewer lines, utility lines, storm drain pipes, and the possibility of cracking or structural damages to foundations of nearby commercial and residential structures from the displacement of groundwater by underground construction. And have the EIRs consider the effects of flooding that could cause temporary closure of Britton Avenue, a primary evacuation route, and to discuss the environmental impact of disturbing soil that is grossly contaminated with toxic and hazardous chemicals resulting from prior heavy industrial use. And finally, have the EIRs assess air quality as it relates to any exhaust from biotech exhaust stacks on building roofs, including information about the number of stacks, the height of the stacks, the velocity of the exhaust, and the flow pattern of the exhaust as it relates to other buildings, and install air quality monitoring equipment within 100 feet of all other buildings. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Sarah, are there any other callers in the waiting room now?
Yes. Next up, Dimitri.
Dimitri, three minutes, please. Welcome.
Yes, hi. Hi, Planning Commission members. I don't know any of you. There's been quite a bit of turnover. Let me introduce myself very quickly. My name is Dimitri Vandeos. I'm the president of the Greater East San Carlos Neighborhood Association. And I am just formally requesting that the feedback that I emailed last evening be included in the meeting notes. And one thing I wanted to add, there are a couple of things I realized after our community members took a look at the project. Is we are concerned about land use and planning, and we are aware that there is an East Side study going on, but we think that it's probably worth including in the EIR as well. Another thing that was not brought up in the email was in some of the handouts that were shown, we noticed that shuttles were being shown moving along Old County Road, and I wanted the Planning Commission and remind the city that there was a commitment for all shuttles to be moved to the new multimodal transit hub that Caltrain Samtrans constructed along El Camino. So those are the main things. I'm not going to go over all of the issues that we presented in the written documentation. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
Next up, Sonia Elks.
Welcome, Sonia. 3 minutes.
Hi. Great. Thank you for taking my call. I feel a little like a broken record. I always say the same thing. Apologies for that, but it seems like I'm supposed to say them again according to what the instructions were for the public. So I will continue. I'm very interested in circulation, transportation issues, multimodal, active sustainable transportation, public transportation, any way that we can reduce individual single occupancy vehicle driving. And to that point, I want to make exceedingly sure that staff are making sure that there's a good ways to get by shuttle and bus between Highway 280 and the East San Carlos, whether that means bus only lanes so that it is very easy and faster to move around and efficient on public transportation, more efficiently than it is in single car occupancy. However, bus only lanes need to be moving through San Carlos. I really think we need to consider that. Also, public transit lanes between Redwood City and Belmont coming into San Carlos. I want to make sure that everyone knows that the El Camino Real Grand Boulevard initiative that is public transit friendly and bike friendly, bikes and wheels, is also being revisited in Palo Alto, Mountain View, Redwood City, and Menlo Park, and that Peninsula Bikeway Commission is looking at how to make El Camino bike friendlier. I want to recommend that we keep parking off of streets and on these awesome 8-level high parking structures, which I think is fantastic. And any routes that run through the campus, that they have a pedestrian side and a bike friendly side so that there's not a conflict between pedestrians and bikers. Those are the main thing. Thanks.
Thank you. Sarah,
David Tusman.
Welcome, David. David, you may speak. 3 minutes.
Hello, my name's actually Karen Tusman. I'm David Tusman's wife using his computer. Thank you for this presentation. I am excited about this project. I'm a member of the biotech community and worked in life sciences, and glad to see San Carlos becoming a vibrant biotech hub, and hoping that as part of this, it can really be an opportunity to have a vibrant, walkable, low car use, mixed use community at this site. And, echoing what Sonia was saying, really prioritizing multimodal transit and bike use in particular. We live in this extraordinary Caltrain corridor with that just last half-mile problem of getting to work. And so bike share options, things of that nature would be really valuable. And really encouraging the Alexandria to consider how its campus could make Eastside San Carlos a vibrant walkable locus rather than an office park for cars, a place where people can very easily, walk to a local business to get lunch and are really sort of people present in our community versus sort of drivers commuting in and out. And while I appreciate that the parking structure is vertical and that is definitely better than just having all surface parking, sometimes maximizing parking can sort of compete with our climate goals. So encouraging ways to encourage and incentivize multimodal transit use would be good. And lastly, I just wanted to say, I had the pleasure of doing my PhD in New York City. I worked in a lab right next to my housing. I know that labs and housing can densely coexist, and I encourage the project to use all best practices to make it so that whatever the structures and air emissions and all of that do come out won't preclude having housing built nearby in the future. Thank you, that's it.
Kay, go forth.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to second the comments that the person before me just made about the transportation aspects. The first thing that struck me when I saw that map was, gee, that looks like an awful lot of parking for a facility that's supposed to be promoting other modes of transit. I was glad to see that there will be an increased emphasis on expanded discussion of biological resources and hazardous materials. So thank you for that. One thing I did not see, and the other thing I'm very glad is being included is the restoration of Pulgas Creek. That's very important to me. And I want to make sure that there's also a discussion of public access to that creek once it is restored. One thing I did not see, though, was any discussion of energy. And maybe I just missed this, but I know that Alexandria sort of prides itself on building energy efficient campuses. And so I would like to see in the EIR some analysis of what the anticipated energy use would be, and then also an analysis of opportunities for this campus to perhaps be a net energy, renewable energy producer. Is it possible to put more solar there than is needed just to be consumed for the campus, or wind, or whatever opportunities there might be to help serve the community and reduce the need for fossil fuels, and or battery storage. Is there an opportunity there for battery storage that would also help the community? And then also thinking about community amenities. One of the biggest needs that we're going to have with the change in climate is for cooling centers. And since these, I understand, are supposed to be very, very efficient buildings, would there be opportunities for portions of this campus to perhaps be used for that purpose during extreme heat events? Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, is there another caller?
Not at this time.
Okay. Well, if there's nobody else waiting, I would entertain a motion to close the public comment period.
I had a couple of comments, Chair Roof. We can do that now before we close it, or after. What is your preference?
I think we can close the public comment and then open deliberations among the planning commissioners.
I'll move to close the public comment period.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Commissioner Jacoponi?
Yes.
Commissioner Garvey?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Vice Chair Clements?
Yes.
And Chair Ruth?
Yes. Okay, so now the planning commissioners, it's our opportunity to discuss the topic. And what we have before us is to receive the comments from the public and to receive comments from ourselves as planning commissioners that are entered into the record. So I see that Commissioner Garvey has raised your hand. Would you like to go first, Commissioner Garvey?
Thank you, Chair Roof. I have 4 comments. First, I'm pleased that the hazardous materials and soils section is going to be studied a little more thoroughly. And I also was pleased to see in the initial study, I couldn't remember when Kelly Moore went in, and I had thought it was back in the 1960s when lead was a large component of paint manufacturing. And I know this from a previous part of my career. I think the federal mandate to no longer allow lead to be used in paint manufacturing was around 1977. And I believe I read in the packet that Kelly Moore came in around 1978. At any rate, I'm hoping, the initial study alluded to this, I'm hoping that the EIR flushes out, was there any overlap in that? And if so, what were the lead levels like in the soil? And I'm anticipating that there's minimal, if any, remediation needed, but I just wanted to make sure that that was studied. My second comment relates to the volatile organic compounds that the initial study says were found in smallish amounts in the soil when solvent tanks were removed from the Kelly Moore site in the 1980s and the 1990s. And the solvent was a big component of paint manufacturing in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and it's much less so today. We have a lot of water-based paints today. So I'm curious if the EIR will be, I'm hoping that the EIR will be looking at what are the remnants, if any, of trichloroethane or trichloroethylene or any solvent that remains in the soil. I understand the soil that was surrounding those tanks was removed from the site when the tanks were removed. But it would be nice to see that studied or fleshed out a little bit more in the EIR. Are they going to look at more soil where those tanks used to be, just to make sure there's nothing residual in the soil? My third comment is on the fume hoods. If the fume hoods are large, there are air quality regulations in place to control those emissions. And my expectation and anticipation is that if Alexandria has these fume hoods, that they know that they need to comply with air quality regulations and that they will. So I'm assuming that that will be noted in some way in the environmental impact report. The last thing is I'm really pleased to see the cumulative assessment nature of this EIR, where we're looking at the impacts from not only this project, but other projects in that area that are proposed or in the pipeline, or people are starting to think about them. That gives a consistency from one project to another. And for projects that are further down the line, it sets an example. It sets, an example of how these other companies in the future might look at their transportation plans or their walkability plans. So I was really pleased to see that this is a cumulative EIR for all of the projects that are currently in the pipeline. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Through the chair, if I may interrupt just this portion, I just wanted to remind the commission that there was a caller at the beginning under items that were not on the agenda. I believe it was Gail Gose. And I think we had indicated that, I think she had indicated that she did want to speak on agenda item 6A. I am not sure if she's still in the room. This would require the commission to open the public hearing, but maybe there's a way if Sarah, and if certainly if Gail is listening, maybe she can raise her hand so we at least know she's still here and she's still wanting to speak. But if the commission wanted to hear from Gail, it would require a reopening of the public hearing.
Certainly. Is Gail available?
I do not
So-
see her in the meeting. Unless you're calling in, press *6 to notify.
Thank you for checking, Sarah. If she's not, then we can just move on, but I did want to make a
Yes, thank you. Well, Gail, if you call in the next few minutes while we're still on this agenda item, then we'd love to hear your comments, and we'll reopen the public comment period for that.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, I see that Commissioner Iacoponi, you have a comment?
I do. Thank you, Chair Roof. And maybe in the spirit of building, as Commissioner Garvey did, three points. I would echo, I'm pleased to see the expansion of the EIR topics. And I think the public has raised a couple of times this notion of flooding. And I'm not sure how or where in the proposed list of topics that is covered. So maybe that's a question. Is flooding and hydrology going to be considered, or is it not deemed a part of the study at this time? And if so, maybe we could hear why.
Staff, can you respond to that question?
Rebecca, are you still with us?
Yep, just unmuting myself.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there was a full hydrological assessment done of the current project, which was referenced in the initial study and included the summary of that analysis in there. It demonstrates with some graphics included through, just to show you where in the initial study, pages 37 through 42, mapping of flooding under current conditions, and then the applicant is proposing to improve the project over current conditions to actually capture some of those floodwaters when flood does occur, and help not only prevent flooding on their site, but prevent some of the flooding in the area along the creek outside of their project. So it'll be a net benefit for the area, what they're proposing with the project. They have a number of areas that will actually capture any floodwaters. They have an open space area that's lower that will flood when floodwaters come up, and they've created channels that'll direct water to that to capture it. So currently we were not planning to restudy this in the environmental impact report, but rather rely on the studies that were already done and the planning of this project that's net beneficial for flooding in the area.
Good. Thank you for that. And I remember reading through that in the packet. And maybe a question for Lisa Costa-Sanders. If the public have specific concerns about flooding, what's the best way for them to learn more and to have a better dialogue based on the work that's been done? That might be helpful to a group of the folks that are with us this evening.
Sure. So as indicated, that initial study is posted on the city's website under the project development page for this project, 987 Commercial. So there's information there. And then all of the technical analysis that are referenced in the initial study are also published on that project webpage. I know we've been having a few technical issues with the project webpage, given the vast amounts of information that is posted on there. So I'd like to give it a check again tomorrow to make sure everything's there. But they can certainly look at that or give us a call and we can point in the right direction or try to send that report separately. It is a very actually interesting graphic and analysis that's been prepared by the applicant, and it's been peer reviewed by the city's engineer staff and the city's consulting engineer as well for the accuracy of that report.
Great, thank you. And so then I hope the folks, the members of the public that are most concerned about this can take advantage of those do a little bit of review as part of the process there with those good resources. Maybe just two other quick comments then. One is this, I love the one of our callers quotes about not an office park for cars. I guess I would just say, I hope that in the work that we do as a planning commission, as staff with Alexandria and with City Council, that we really do seize the opportunity to make this new development a community center rather than a worker 9 to 5, 8 to 6 center and silent otherwise. I'm not sure exactly other than placing that as an important comment now, how else we'll do that, but that feels like it would be a missed opportunity if the retail and other amenities weren't, if their life didn't extend beyond just a work week time. I'd ask that we keep that in mind. And then I think the last comment that I would have is just echo the other caller's point about as we work on transportation demand management and the multimodal recommendations, whatever we can do to encourage all ways of getting from Caltrain to the facility and back will end up being a great benefit. So those would be my pieces of input this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Clement, would you like to make a comment? I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Chair. I had a couple more thoughts. Actually, I wanted to build on exactly what Commissioner Iacopone just built on, which is the challenges in building large industrial spaces in a community context. How do we make sure that the design of the buildings encourages that connectivity and that walking and pedestrian orientation and biking and multimodal and all that? But how do we make sure that the buildings meet the street in a way that keeps these buildings or makes these buildings part of our community? So I also really liked what the person in the public commented. This, one of my worst fears would be that this would be a closed off business park with its back towards the community and not really care about how the active street front amenities are either designed or not designed. And I actually feel like the other building that just went up and Terezia's efforts in that realm were good. And so I wanted to just make a note that the design that was presented looked like it was going to continue in that vein, but that was an important part of this overall plan to me. I wanted to ask just a couple of questions. I think I heard that this CEQA analysis was going to not just cover Alexandria per se, but also, so as to not piecemeal, it was also going to cover pieces of the East Side kind of vision district. Is this just on Alexandria, or because it also potentially deals with transportation and circulation beyond that, does it kind of reach out beyond that? And I was just trying to understand how the CEQA approval would then be used by other developments. I guess that's a staff question.
Sure. So, and Rebecca, feel free to join in as our CEQA expert here. But the project will be evaluating as required under the cumulative analysis, the other planned proposed projects in the vicinity. But Rebecca, do you want to discuss kind of that level of review and if those future projects could tier off of that?
Sure. So like Lisa said, this project, we need to look at what the impacts of this particular project are so that we know what they need to mitigate. But in order to capture that area development, we will include that in a cumulative analysis. So this project plus those projects. And that will create the overall impacts that then everyone else can tier off of those, but they'll need to pull out what their own portion of of those cumulative impacts are, just as this project is doing.
Got it. That's helpful. That's clear. Thank you. And then one other question, which is just the role of the other agencies involved. I understand toxics more than water. And so, you know, as I think as W. Baldacci's comments talking about FEMA flood zone designations and things that I think are probably not under the purview of the city of San Carlos, but really are under water districts or Army Corps of Engineers and other entities. How far does the CEQA analysis go in terms of analyzing what would need to occur? You know, how does it take into account any actions that would have to happen with entities other than the city? That could be the state, or it could be a regional water agency or other agencies like that in an issue like flooding or like toxic soils, for instance.
So it does depend on which particular issue we're talking about, but in general, if the regulatory agencies have standards that are set and that the project needs to meet, we can rely on those standards in our analysis of what would happen with the project. If instead they're discretionary approvals where there's some wiggle room for them to do various things, then we'll need to figure out how to wrap that into the analysis. A lot of what you mentioned are things for which there are standards that they will have to meet. So we can look at, if they meet those standards, will they still have an environmental impact or not? And then it's just the regulatory agencies will enforce their standards.
Got it. So I hear you saying that the analysis for this project, CEQA, for CEQA purposes, is about how can this project accommodate flooding. How can that be sized, given what the standards are that need to be met with other agencies are using, kind of in context? Is that one way to think about it, or how would you state that?
Yeah, that's a good way to state it.
Okay.
You can't see my hand, but I have a comment or a question or two. May I go ahead? Hello?
Commissioner Bradley, please go ahead.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I'll start out with the overall design. Looking at the plan, I'm wondering if the drawings show the 8 buildings, rather arbitrary outlines of the buildings. They're lined up on the streets, but inside, I'm wondering if this is that much of your final design, or just so that you know, you could adjust them later. Be more flexible for your own design efforts, which we would want to encourage. You don't need to answer, but it's something to think about and look at, I suppose. I want to echo too the concern about flooding and any toxic wastes that our other commissioners and the public have already mentioned. And have a question, maybe if our staff can answer this, or any of the commissioners, can we require them to put more than enough solar panels for their own use? Because I'm would certainly be in favor of them maximizing electrical generation for not just for the community as well as their own use. I don't know of any community that's required that, but I'm sure it's happened elsewhere. Something we might look into. We don't need to come up with an answer tonight. And a couple of things when they get into final design that I didn't notice in the hundreds of pages that we read, which was a very good report that Gregory did. and Lampert, Joan Lampert. And that is motorcycle parking. I congratulate them on the bicycle, short-term, long-term bicycle parking and the parking structures, but the parking structures are taller than the lab buildings, which I suppose is all right. And also electric vehicle charging stations would be necessary when we get to the final design of the project. That's all I have right up to this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Staff has, Sarah has, have we connected with our community member, Gail, who wanted to make a comment?
Do we need to reopen the public hearing?
Well, I guess we can reopen it if we get her on the line. If not, then there's not much point.
She hasn't joined at this time.
Okay. Okay. Well, she still has the opportunity to submit written comments for the scoping after this meeting. So hopefully that will work. And my comments are that I think the scope of the topics to be included in the EIR seemed quite comprehensive. Actually, can we go to the slide that where the topics were listed that and we circled once that would be included? So the and the third yellow circle, which one is that around? It seems to be around half of two of them.
Yeah, I see that did get knocked. So those are supposed to, those circles are supposed to be around the yellow ones: biological resources, cultural and tribal resources, and hazardous materials.
Okay, and so the hydrology would not be included for the reasons that you clearly stated in this.
Correct. That's what the initial study determined, and that's our current thinking. But we can always pull more things into the EIR if it's determined that that's necessary, but it is not currently the plan.
Okay. And otherwise, nearly everything is already circled here, so so we can have confidence that that all of these things will be followed up in the EIR. So I think that this list looks quite comprehensive, and I agree with my fellow commissioners' comments that the cumulative assessment, putting this one in the context of the larger development going on in that area, is clearly critical, because we need to look at it as a whole. So I'm very happy to hear that part of it as well. So that was the last of my comments. Does anybody else have any other commissioners have any final comments before we close this part of the discussion?
Chair Roof, I'm afraid I came up with one more, if you don't mind.
Yes. Go ahead.
I think it's really applicant. I was at the Parks and Recreation category, and it made me think about some other projects that have planned the project and built it with porosity in mind and its access. They take through the project, and recently, large development at, which is admittedly larger than this, but Google's development is a central core at the downtown train station was designed with that fully as one of be to walk between all of the buildings and even though all of it was private property. So I wanted to ask, that was we would be analyzing here because it was part of the design, or if it was under CEQA, but yet it still could be. That doesn't mean it couldn't be part of the project definition.
I'm sorry, I missed a good portion of that. If that was a question for environmental, I didn't quite catch it.
Kristen, I also, you dropped out a little for me as well. Maybe you could just say, if you had a specific question for staff, could you read that part?
Kind of a joint question. If public access private property isn't part of the project design, which because it is such a large development, and is that something that the project applicant has thought about or designed yet?
Your question was about public access to the central open spaces, and yes, the applicant is working through that, how much it would be available to the public, and kind of on what standards and conditions. So that is something we're still kind of working through. It could become part of the community benefits package for this development. And I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry, some of it cut out.
I see. No, that's fine. And I noticed my video is now streaming strangely for me a minute later. And so that does not need to therefore be analyzed from a CEQA perspective at this time. Is that right? Because it's not circled.
Well, I think it's the impact on the parks.
That it would be recreational space.
Right, so this would be a net improvement if it's available to the public, and then the impact is really, does it impact the parks and recreation services with the project? Rebecca, did you want to add on that at all? You're on mute, Rebecca.
Thanks, Lisa. We did take a brief look at it in the initial study, basically just to compare, are they proposing at least as much open space and recreational space on the site as they would be required to under the code? And the answer was that they are. So it wouldn't raise to the level of being an environmental impact, and at that point it is public benefit. So it would be dealt with through the planning process and not the CEQA process.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If there are no further comments from the commissioners, maybe we can finish this topic. Lisa, do we need any kind of a motion, or have you just received our feedback and we can move on to the next topic?
Yes, we've received your feedback and I really appreciate it, as well as the community members' feedback. And Lisa Porras, if you wouldn't mind just going back to that comment slide for a moment, I just wanted to remind everybody that this is not your last opportunity to provide comments on the scope. You can still do so until July 28th, and you can mail those into City Hall, or you can email those comments directly to myself, and the email is provided here, is also on the city's website. Thank you.
Okay, well, the second item in the public hearing is 1030 Britton Avenue.
I'm sorry, through the chair.
Yes.
Wanted to let you know that I did get an email from Gail Goss, who she let me know that she had tried to raise her hand but didn't get called upon. So before we move on, I just thought maybe we can try one more time and check with Sarah to see if there is anyone in the waiting room on this item, because I know she had called in at the beginning, and then I just checked my email and she emailed me. So Sarah, do we have anyone in the waiting room for this item? If not, we can move on.
I don't see her.
Okay. All right. I just thought I would ask for her.
Yes, good. Very good.
Playback. Okay. And again, yes, written comments are taken up until 5:00 p.m. on July 28th. Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's go on to the second item in the public hearing, which is the 1030 Britton Avenue. And let's see. Oh, yes, here we are. a request for the design review, creek setback exception, grading and dirt haul, transportation demand management plan, and initial study / mitigated negative declaration for a new research and development life science building. Does the staff have a presentation for this?
Yes, thank you for the introduction. Lisa Costa Sanders, Principal Planner, excuse me, I'll be giving the staff presentation. Thank you, Lisa, you can go to the next one. So the subject site consists of 2 lots totaling 2 acres in area that are currently used for surface parking along Britton Avenue. The site was previously used as a parking lot for L3 Communications business and is currently used as off-site car storage. The site is located within the General Commercial Industrial Zoning District, as well as that same general plan land use designation. The site is adjacent to the proposed Alexandria Center development that we just spoke about, Pet Boys, and across from Home Depot. The next graphic was prepared for the East Side Vision Study area, and it shows the study area boundaries in context with proposed developments in that area. The City Council initiated the East Side Vision Study to guide development in the area, including community benefits, street standards, transportation connectivity, and land use form. The study is currently underway and scheduled to be complete in September. The Council requested all projects within the study area that include a request for planned development zoning be considered after completion of the study. The project before you tonight is not subject to that stipulation, as it complies with the underlying zoning with the approval of the requested entitlements. I also just wanted to orient the Commission to the proximity of recently approved and proposed developments. As you can see, this 1030 Britton site is immediately adjacent to the recently completed development at 930 Britton, as well to the proposed Alexandria Center development. All approved and proposed developments on this map, with the exception of the hotel at 501 Industrial, are proposed as research and development life science uses. The request, the applicant proposes to construct a new 3-story, 96,175 square foot research and development life science building. Next slide. With below and at grade parking and landscaping improvements. The requested entitlements include design review, creek setback exception, grading and dirt haul, and transportation demand management plan. I'll go ahead and start with the design review. This is the view of the building looking east along Britton Avenue. Here you see the right side and the building frontage. The design is contemporary and utilizes a variety of materials to break up the massing of the building, as well as add architectural interest. The main body will be white cement plaster and include black and gray accents. The building is proposed with a gray metal running along the top of the building to serve as a roof screen and a parapet. Large glass windows are utilized throughout the building and seek to minimize the mass and the bulk. Floor to ceiling windows are designed for the eastern side of the building at all 3 floors to create visual statement at the main lobby entrance at the right corner of the building. The entry doors face Britton Avenue as well as the interior parking lot. The Britton Avenue facade includes a lobby area and tenant space with glass windows to activate that street frontage. And the next slide shows another view of the building when traveling west on Britton Avenue. And you see here the adjacent completed 930 Britton Avenue building. The next slide shows the rear of the building as viewed from the creek side. The parking area is tucked in the back half of the building. And here you can also see the landscape courtyard space on the 2nd floor. I'll now review the creek setback exception request. Plogus Creek is located along the northern side of the site. This segment of the creek has been engineered as a concrete lined channel, and the existing paved parking lot is currently located adjacent to the creek retaining wall with a dirt strip. The city's code requires new development to be set back a minimum of 25 feet from the top of the creek bank or other such distance as specified by the Planning Commission. The existing site is entirely paved, essentially up to the same line as proposed by the applicant. The building itself would be proposed to be set back 34 feet from the top of the creek bank. The project does place a fire access and circulation lane around the entire perimeter of the building. And due to the required width of this fire access lane and the applicant's proposed layout, the applicant's requesting a partial encroachment, as shown in the highlighted yellow area, into the 25 feet setback zone. The existing bridge that crosses the creek is proposed to remain, And the applicant has also proposed a public access easement that would connect Britton Avenue across this site, across the bridge, and a future connection to the Alexandria Center development. And that is added as a condition of approval to ensure that that easement is recorded on the property. The mitigated negative declaration did evaluate the potential environmental impacts of the development and conclude that there would be no impact to the creek habitat. The applicant does have some new landscaped areas adjacent to that riparian zone. Next, for the grading and dirt haul, the total site grading is 20,500 cubic yards for the one level of below grade parking. Applicant estimates about 220 truckloads to off haul, and that would occur over a 40-day period. Grading operations will follow the recommendations of the geotechnical report. The haul route is US 101 to Britton or Whipple to Industrial to Britton, and then the trucks would leave using the reverse route. San Carlos Code also requires a transportation demand management plan be prepared to achieve a 20% trip reduction. And the applicant has submitted their TDM plan that includes bicycle parking, showers, changing facilities, a commuter program, including commuter passes, trip planning resources, as well as alternatives to transportation. The applicant also provided a letter from CCAG, the City County Associations of Government, saying that the plan meets the requirements of the county's congestion management plan. And the next slide shows that the site is approximately, it's just under a mile walk to the Caltrain station, which results in about an 18-minute walk. This project was evaluated under CEQA with the preparation of a mitigated negative declaration. The analysis found that the proposed project would not result in a significant impact to the environment with the implementation of the mitigation measures. The mitigation measures are attached to the CEQA resolution as a mitigated monitoring reporting plan, and that is standard measures for this type of development, including if cultural resources are discovered, implementing the requirements of the geotechnical report, and ensure implementation of the transportation demand management plan. The mitigated negative declaration was available for public review and comment from June 8th through June 28th, and we have not received any comments during that time frame. If you skip to the next two slides, the public notice, one more, thank you. The public notice was mailed to all property owners and occupants within 300 feet of the site on July 6th and published in the newspaper on July 8th. Just before the meeting this evening, we've received 2 public comments via email, and I believe those have been forwarded to the commissioners, from Debbie and Gary Balducci at 1852 Carmelita, expressing concern with flooding and creek setback, as well as from Sean and Jennifer Peters at 1866 Carmelita, expressing opposition to the creek setback exception. The next slide has the motion. Should the commission be prepared to approve this project? I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. We also have our CEQA consultant here this evening if you have any CEQA related questions, and the applicant after that has a brief presentation they would like to give. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Lisa. Should we entertain questions for the staff or move to the applicant's presentation? Remind me, what's the order we should do this in?
Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
They're really whatever the commission and the chair would like. We can take any clarifying questions now, or you can wait until after all the public comments and the applicant's presentation. It's your choice.
Okay, well, I don't think I see any hands raised. So let's, if the applicant would like to make a presentation now, we would welcome that.
Good evening and thank you. My name is Ryan Gabara. I'm with MBC Biolabs. Can you guys hear me okay?
Ryan, this is Lisa Porras. Just give me a minute to pull up your presentation, assuming you would like.
The presentation is really just there for us to answer any questions if anything comes up.
Okay. All right. Then you can proceed.
Say a few things, and if anybody's got any questions, happy to answer them. So once again, my name is Ryan Gabara, and here tonight on behalf of MBC Biolabs. So thank you tonight for considering our project at 1030 Britton. We've been processing this application through the planning department for about 2.5 years, and so we're excited to be in front of you tonight. This has included hearings around the project at the city council level, public notices, CEQA notices, participating in the Eastern Neighborhood Study, neighborhood outreach, and more. As a brief background, as some of you know, we own and operate MBC Biolabs, which is a full-service, vertically integrated life science incubator that enables small companies to really, exist, raise capital, and invent some really cool things that otherwise might not happen. As we like to say, we enable awesome. And what these companies come up with, from cancer treatments to COVID diagnostics, it's pretty cool stuff. I think actually some of the planning commissioners have been to our space at 930 Britton, which is adjacent to the site. It opened last year. As you guys kind of know, and as I've mentioned, we're a user of this building, so we're a little bit different in that we designed this building specifically to meet our needs. As Lisa mentioned, the building's about 100,000 square feet and fits and meets all the current zoning designations and design requirements. In the design of this building, we have provided about 50% more bike parking than is required per code. And honestly, we're having conversations internally about even increasing that. We've found that we have a lot of demand for bike parking across our lab campuses. And so that's something that we don't want to short on. We're also providing more parking than is required by code. Again, this is to make sure that we meet the demand that we may have, the demand that we might have at the site. COVID has made it a little tough to measure our actual demand next door. And without street parking and wanting to make sure that we do not burden our neighbors, we want to again make sure that we meet this demand. Of note, you'll see that on the ground floor, we have made parking easily absorbable into our building in small increments, which gives us the maximum amount of flexibility to meet the ever-changing demands on our buildings as we own and operate this building for the coming decades. I've also got Andreas Greke, who is part of the architecture team here tonight, to answer any questions about the design. As we went through this process, we sought to make this building different but complementary to the building next door. As you look at the building next door, it's something that we're really proud of. It's kind of been our showcase site, and we're excited that 1030 Britton is going to add to that and be the next showcase site that we're going to have. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, or like I said, I've got Andreas sitting next to me, and he can answer any questions about the architecture as well.
Thank you. Questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Clements, please go ahead.
Hi, Chair, thank you. And thank you for this application. Sorry it's taken you 2.5 years to get to this place, but it sounds like you've changed it through the years. So glad that you are here now. I just wanted to ask about the request to go into the creek setback. And I think I saw that it was being used for the access road around the building. And if you could talk about why you believe that exception is warranted, and why you don't think it would be a problem, even though it is within the, I think it's called the riparian corridor, into the creek setback zone.
Sure. So the existing site is paved and paved up to the boundary that we are currently proposing to pave into the creek setback. In other words, we're not doing anything other than tearing up existing asphalt and putting new asphalt in its place. That's the only thing that we're doing in the creek setback. So all of the existing improvements that are there, which consist of a parking lot, are literally just tearing up the existing asphalt, putting down new asphalt. So there is really nothing that's really changing. I mean, there's other ways that we could have gone about it in terms of just doing an overlay. But that wasn't the correct way to build it, and so that's why we're proposing this creek, going into this creek setback, and that's why we're required to seek this approval. Mm-hmm. But nothing else is requiring us to seek this approval other than just tearing up the existing parking lot and putting new, stronger parking lot down that fire trucks can drive over.
Right, and there's nothing else. And I know with heavy engines like that permeable pavers route is kind of out the window usually. Is there any other solution? And maybe staff can remind us why a 25-foot creek setback exists and what the thought is with that. Because we just got out of a conversation about creek flooding. And so we just want to make sure that paving over that area is a good idea, even though it has been paved to this point. Now that work is being done and you're actually undoing that work and redoing it. The question is that wise?
I'll let staff discuss what other options are there, et cetera. From my standpoint, the other option from our standpoint is to do nothing and not seek this and leave an old parking lot there in that portion that encroaches on the 25-foot setback. So I think you saw the yellow highlighted area that Lisa pointed out. And so the alternative to not being in the creek setback would be to just leave old parking lot in that portion, which I'm not sure makes sense for anybody.
Thanks for that. So I think that's a staff question about the purpose of the setback.
Sure. So this is contained in section 18.14. ONO talks about the purpose. It's intended to protect the waterways and the health and safety and the welfare of the city by establishing regulations. So one, preserve and protect the natural hydrological system and ecological functions of the waterways, so they are not working within the waterway. Provide reasonable protection to owners of riparian property and the public from the hazards of stream bank failures and flooding, while allowing owners of property near waterways reasonable use of and the opportunity to improve their properties consistent with the general safety. And finally, avoid excavation, filling, development, or construction that can adversely affect public health and safety by aggravating drainage flows during flooding conditions or interfering with riparian habitat.
Great. And can you point out the application, the development requirements in the PD permit that address, that kind of mitigate the effects of building within that setback, and maybe give a little context? How often would this circulation path be used? I know it's really built for emergency vehicles generally, but if there's any context you can lend to whether it really would be used that often.
Let me just look at the site plan real quick. So it is not, the primary access for the parking garage is from that side loaded and is not from the rear. So it would primarily be used for emergency vehicle access, but there, I believe, is some loading zone at the rear as well that would be accommodating any large delivery vehicles. And the applicant can maybe expand on what their thought is on the circulation patterns on the site.
Yeah, so the anticipation is that like a UPS truck might pull up there and unload packages and things like that, on a daily basis. Again, I'm not sure. We're not digging in there. We're not doing anything. We're just taking what's there and putting it back, essentially just new. So there's not. I think when you listen to the intent of what Lisa just read, I think that's to make sure we're not disturbing the water or doing anything. We're not doing any of that. So.
Mm-hmm. Great. And are there any other conditions, Lisa, in the permit that kind of protect the waterways and speak to the purpose of the 25-foot rule in general?
In the city's code, you're asking?
No, in the conditions of approval.
Oh, okay. Do we have any conditions of approval? Well, they're not.
Any kind of mitigating, offsetting factors that allow for the variance, but.
Yeah, so the exception process doesn't have specific findings that are needed for this creek setback exception. But as I indicated, they are doing some new landscaping just outside the setback area, but near the creek that is native to California landscaping. Mm-hmm. And then they're also providing that public access easement. So that would give the opportunity for the public to have access to the creek through that existing bridge there, and then have access through the site. So it provides a new north-south connection, kind of a mid-block access through the site, assuming it could connect to the future Alexandria Center development.
Got it.
And as I think the applicant also indicated, unfortunately, the fire department would not allow any kind of permeable paving in that area. So that was another item we definitely explored.
Yeah, I had that suggestion on a different project in a different place, and people were just shaking their head at me like, no, that does not work. It's worth a question though, right?
Kristen, part of what we do too on this site is that we capture all of the stormwater and we treat it all on site. So that's actually, by doing this and by redoing this pavement, this also gives, it's a net benefit to the entire area that we are now treating all of the stormwater on site.
Got it. Thank you. I thought I saw something about that in here and I was trying to locate that. Thank you for noting that again.
Maybe I could jump in here, Ryan, with a related question. On the entire site, how much of it is pervious now? I guess very little because it's a big parking lot. And how much would be pervious after the project is complete?
You know, I don't have that data readily available, but as you point out, it's a complete parking lot right now. And to this parking lot, we are now adding some landscape and then also, again, treating all of the stormwater on site, whereas none of it gets treated right now. And now all of it will be treated on site that falls, you know, onto this site.
I see. And I saw the yellow zone on the figure, but I didn't see the scale. How many feet of encroachment goes from 0 to, what's the average encroachment over that?
You know, it's a good question. I don't have the answer. It looks like it goes, you know, it's 34 feet to the closest point of the building. So we're, you know, well set back from that. So,
yes.
You know, I don't have that answer, so I don't want to speak out of turn.
Okay. The building encroaching, it's just the
it's just the park. It's just the parking.
The driveway. Yes.
It's just the drive aisle, and it's already there. We're just replacing it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Commissioners, if we've addressed the creek setback question sufficiently, then maybe we could. Are there any other comments or questions on the creek setback issue? Because then there's some other elements to this that we might want to explore.
I'm satisfied with that because, as he mentioned, they'll be reducing the area of paving overall, and they're not increasing the extension into the easement.
Yes, I think to me, I agree. To me, it seems like it's a net benefit that we're getting here, even with the encroachment.
I would agree with that it's a net benefit, and I would support the setback.
Just to clarify though, are the stormwater regs required by the city to be different than they were, or is the on-site stormwater treatment and reuse kind of going above and beyond what's in place now?
The requirements are the standard city requirements for the stormwater treatment.
Right.
But there is no treatment on site right now. So it's going above and beyond what's there currently.
Right, but any new development would need to treat and reuse on site. It's
correct.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I see the configuration of the lot there next to a creek, which is essentially as being a fairly unique situation that sort of allows for, in my mind, an exception, to allow us to give the exception for the setback because of the particular to the site.
One more note on that. I found the condition number 63 to minimize potential impacts to Pulgus Creek. So there are several items in there to just be good to the water quality in the creek, which is part of the reason for the setback. So
yeah. Okay, if we've had enough discussion on the creek setback, there's some other interesting parts of this proposal before us. Perhaps I liked the bridge and the public access. Is that, and particularly because that it shows that the applicant has taken note of the vision plan that's under development and understands the importance of having ability to have pedestrian traffic, probably also bicycle. Actually, that might be a question. Go over the bridge. So that would be I understand it's the existing bridge would be retained. So that I thought real positive, and I think that's one of the conditions of our approval today is that will be that public access will be provided. So that gets my thumbs up.
Through the chair,
Any other
I don't know if you have
there?
other questions of the applicant, or if you wanted to turn it over for public comment at this time.
Okay, it's probably a good. Thank you, Lisa, for that.
I had one question of the applicant.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Is this a good time? Okay.
Yes.
The solar panels that are on the roof, I appreciate that they're there. I had just a general question. Can you give an idea as to how much of your energy demand will be met by the solar panels?
So we always put solar panels on all of our buildings. We find that it helps us with our PG&E bill. It's efficient. It's a great thing to do. The other thing that we're doing at this site is that we're going to use I'm blanking on the word here. I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank at a bad time. The the carbon neutral backup system that we're using that actually provides 40% of the power to our building. Who is it? What's the name of the company? Sorry, I'm sitting here talking about.
Bloom Energy. The
Bloom Energy.
Yes,
thank you.
yeah.
Yes, I've got a Bloom Energy system that's going in here that is, it is carbon neutral. It creates as a byproduct electricity and water in the reaction, and so that is actually going to supply about 40% of the power to our building. So between that and the solar, we're really limiting the demands we're putting on PG&E, and we're doing a lot of on-site generation with carbon neutral products.
I remember the fuel cells that went in at 9:30. I had forgotten about those.
The fuel cells, that's what it is. Thank you. The fuel cells, that's what I was looking for. Yes, the fuel cell technology. And so that's something that we're excited to do and put into this project.
Thank you. And through the chair, may I have one additional opportunity for one more question?
Please.
For the applicant, the dirt hauling, Lisa Costa Sanders mentioned the route, and coming in, it's up Industrial, and then they come up Britain, and then they go in reverse. If they have to go south on 101, or if they want to go north on 101, either way, when they come out of the site with a truck full of dirt, which is going to go on for 40 days, they have to make a left onto Britain with no light. Do you envision that this will be a problem? Or maybe you did this at 9:30 and I just don't remember, and it went fine. Can you just comment on how you think that's going to go?
Yeah, so we will have traffic control in place that will come out and make sure that everything is, operating safely. As you point out, they will come out of the site and they will make a left, and they are planning to go on and get on the freeway right there at Britain Avenue. We've got a site lined up that's going to take the dirt. So we kind of know where it's going to go and the routes, which is what we've provided to you. We did do some dirt hauling at 9:30, not quite as much as this. The 40 days is kind of the date range that's on the schedule right now. That doesn't mean necessarily that we're hauling every single one of those days. Some of those days is just preparation, flopping dirt, moving it around. So those are really grading days, of which a lot of those will be hauling days, but not necessarily every one of them.
And through the chair, the engineering department will approve the exact haul route, and they also specify the hours. And so they will not be able to haul during the morning and the evening commute hours.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Lisa. Very helpful. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, maybe we can move to the receive public comments. So is there anyone in the waiting room who would like to speak, Sarah? And if you would like to speak, you can use the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen, or you can press *9 on your phone. Sarah, do we have people lined up yet?
Yes, Debbie Balbocci.
Yes, thank you so much for allowing us an opportunity to speak. And to the developer, Ryan, I am sorry for providing such a detailed response so late in the game. I hear you've been doing this for 2.5 years, and I sure wish I had been involved earlier. But just to put my comments in perspective, there's a group of us that live on Pulgus Creek, and we, in that 12-page annotated document that I submitted, I put pictures of the kinds of storm drain damage we've sustained in our creek. Trees fell down, uprooted a PG&E line. We had to evacuate on foot. There's been various other incidents like that. So there's just a number of us that are very concerned about any development on the creek. But I did want to say this, your plan was very detailed, and we so appreciated it because we were able to see that one of the reasons there's so much water flow in your area is because Britton Creek flows under pipes into Pulgus near El Camino. So that explains a lot. And we went down there today, took pictures of the site, and where it flows into Smith Slough under 101, it was during high tides. And so it was 3 feet away. The water level was 3 feet away from the underside of 101, and it was reverse flowed backwards. And so when we get heavy storms and the creek outlet gets blocked, that causes our creeks to fill up, and our storm drains from the creek get submerged and they can't empty. So that's one thing. But the other overriding concern for us is just climate change. There's so much talk about fossil fuel emissions and that, but very little about building so close to the shoreline. And so the annotations that I included relate to the kinds of things that we wish that the city would be doing to not allow this kind of development so close. But that said, since it looks like you're already in the process, just a couple of things. Number one, having the parking lot covered was sort of a better way, we thought, for flood management, because it just like washed off of that. But allowing permeable surfaces doesn't seem like that would help too much, because honestly, the water level is so low. And then finally, I did have a question just about two things. One was that you said the subterranean parking garage would offset displaced floodwater. How would you get it out of there, and how would you do that if it flooded cars? And then the other thing, it said that you had a drain in the basement that connected to the sanitary sewer, and that's inconsistent with the requirements that there be no flood drainage into the sewer. So if you could just address those, I'd appreciate it.
Well, maybe we should gather all the public comments and then address them in case there's overlap in the content. We could be more efficient that way. So let's take note of those questions and move on to the next caller.
Laura T.
Hi, I'm Laura Tuchel. I'm a lifelong San Carlos resident. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. So I want to speak in support of this project. As the developer mentioned, they've been mired in this for a couple of years. It's gone on a long time. They've really worked with the city, and I think this is really a matter of improvement to that creek easement versus no improvement. And clearly the applicant is paying attention to the rules around the creek and the waterways, native landscaping, public access. These are all things that I think are envisioned in on the east side by all San Carlos residents. So I just want to applaud the applicant, and I hope the Planning Commission will approve the project on a timely basis. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Sarah, is there another caller?
Not at this time.
Okay, good. Let's maybe we can ask the applicant to respond to Debbie's question about the below grade parking garage and the
Yeah, I just called my engineer, and we do not have a sanitary drain in the basement. We have only storm, and it all gets treated on site. So nothing is going to the sanitary sewer from the lower level.
Okay. And for my clarification, below the ground parking garage, how does that work? I mean, given that it is a floodplain, is it waterproof and protected from encroachment, or how can you do that?
So yeah, you build a bathtub and you waterproof it, and then any water that gets in, which there's inevitably water that gets in, you treat it on site, and it gets discharged as part of the storm system.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay. Yep. All right. Well, if there are no other callers waiting, then let's.
Sorry,
yes.
Chair Roof, I do
Yes.
see one caller or one speaker ready to make a comment. Patty Marsters.
Sarah, can you bring
Patty?
Patty?
Thank you for
Hi, Patty.
listening to me. It's been great listening to you guys. So I've been listening to the Polgus Creek residents, and that my concern is being raised too. So if you have this underground parking, it seems to me that you are removing soil that would absorb water when it rains, if it ever rains again. You're removing that absorption ability of the, because that soil isn't there. It's in the bathtub, I guess, so to speak. So that is one thing that isn't really clear to me. I think it's kind of makes me believe that these residents have something going when they're talking about flooding that you as commissioners really need to pay attention to. The other question that my husband was going to ask was about the new plantings along the creek and on the property, and if they'd be native, and if they'd be, what do you call it? Invasive. So I think it's important that they shouldn't be invasive and they should be native. So he had to leave, so he wasn't able to ask his question. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there a that defines the plants? I remember seeing pictures of the plants, but I didn't notice if they were native.
Yeah,
there is a landscape plan.
Yes, there's a few trees. I believe it's outside of that 25-foot creek setback, but they are strawberry trees. And when I looked them up, it said that they are native to the California coastal environment.
Okay.
You see, yeah, there's
so
3 trees on
one
each.
last call. Oh, okay. I was going to say we could put out a last call for any members of the public who want to speak. If there are none, then I'm not hearing anything or seeing anything. So I would entertain a motion to close the public comment period.
I will move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Public comment.
And we have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Iacoponi,
Yes.
Commissioner Garvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Bradley,
Yes.
Vice Chair Clements,
Yes.
and Chair Ruth.
Yes. Okay, well, we've already discussed some of it, but now's our partners to discuss the proposal before us. Would anybody like to speak? I see Commissioner Garvey, your hand is raised.
Thank you, Chair Roof. A couple of comments. First, I found the building to be extremely attractive. I like 930. This one complements that design. And when I first read the packet and you were talking, there was a discussion about sharing of parking spaces. I didn't realize it was the same owner. And I thought, well, I hope they get the owner from the next door property to agree to this, and it's you. So I guess there's agreement there. One of the things that I like about projects is being able to right size the parking. And when you are able to share parking with your next door neighbor, as you are doing, that's a big plus. I like the public access easement to the bridge. I'll like it even more if the people that own the property on the other side of the bridge do the same thing, so that people can actually walk on both ends of the bridge. And I'm guessing that Alexandria is already aware of this and going to do something with their project similarly. I was pleased that there's only an 18-minute walk from Caltrain, even faster if you bicycle. And I was pleased that the applicant has envisioned lots of bicycling, because they're already getting this at their other building, and that way high bicycle parking numbers at 155. So you, the applicant, in my opinion, is to be commended for anticipating high bike use and accommodating for that parking. Lastly, I liked the treescape along the sidewalk. I think it's going to be much more visually pleasing. I've seen more and more people walking on Britton from Old County down to Industrial, and having a tree-lined street is just so much nicer than walking along that ugly parking lot that's there right now. The other thing I liked about this project, and this is my, I think my last comment, is the exterior lighting. The design is such that much of the exterior lighting is underneath the overhangs. I thought that was a good design, and the parking lot lights are shielded so that they reduce the light spillage and the light glare. So I was really pleased to see that in the design. And I think it said somewhere in the packet that many of these are motion activated, so they're only used when needed. So I really liked that element of the design. But overall, I support the project, and I really like the design. Thank you.
I will agree with Commissioner Garvey and supporting the project. I was one of the commissioners that went through 930 on a tour during the pandemic, and I was impressed with how they had carried out that project. And I'm thankful that they choose to be in our town and to do an even larger project with us.
If I, Chair Roof, if you can hear me, I wanted to join in and say I'm glad that the project's moving forward. I've been wondering when that giant parking lot is going to do something else, and waiting for that for 15 years that I've lived here. So I'm excited that something's moving forward. I also like that you're not building this on spec, that you're going to occupy the building yourselves, and that you're building it for, you know, your occupancy. And again, as Commissioner Garvey said, with shared parking, I was happy to see there's efficiencies of scale there. So I appreciate you trying to make this area more walkable. And I agree, I have seen more people walking. So excited about the possibilities here. And while I'm sorry to see that there needs to be a setback exception, I understand that the dimensions of the building and the lots don't always allow for the emergency vehicle access very easily, because those are big vehicles. And I've seen that on many projects where that is a challenge to really figure out dimensions that work, that surround the project and still allow the whole thing to move forward. So I appreciate that challenge, and understand the context, and happy to see something moving forward there. So, and it's like to hear about your fuel cell on site. So, and overall, I support the project.
Commissioner Roof, you may be on mute, or Chair Roof.
Commissioner Jacopo, I was just going to say, Commissioner.
I'll take that as a cue, and thank you, Chair Roof. And maybe you're having a little lock up here. I would just build on all of the comments from my fellow commissioners. Looks good. Appreciate the energy efficiency, the public access, and we'll look forward to welcoming this project into the Britton Avenue corridor. I think it'll be a great addition to the city.
Okay, well, I thought it was a very nice proposal as well, a real gain for the city and for the area. I was happy to see that the building scale, the height, the setbacks is all compatible with the street and compatible with the zoning code. So no exceptions are needed there. The transportation demand plan seemed appropriate. Actually, maybe if the staff could clarify, was there a 5-year and a 3-year review in that TDM?
Correct. Consistent with past action that you've taken, we did add a 3-year as well as a 5-year review in there, in addition to the annual reporting for the TDM plan. Thank you.
And as we've noted, it's so difficult to get the exact right amount of parking. So it's kind of cool that that the building is being designed to flex the amount of parking. Presumably, if the TDM comes back that more is needed or less is needed, then adjustments could be made. So it's good to be able to respond to that. So I thought the transportation demand and parking all looked good. It's a beautiful building. It allows for the public access over the bridge, and so that's overall, I'm about the project as well. Are there any final comments from the commissioners? Well, hearing.
I think we've about said it all, so I will make the motion to move that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution approving the mitigated negative declaration, approve the design review, approve the creek setback exception, approve the grading and dirt haul plan permit, and approve the transportation demand management plan for the development of a new 96,175 square foot building at 1030 Britton Avenue in San Carlos, APN 046-162-060 and 046-182-080 for the reasons incorporated in our planning staff report, and with the conditions of code compliance.
Thank you.
Second.
Wonderful. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Jacoponi?
Yes.
Commissioner Garvey?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Vice Chair Clements?
Yes.
And Chair Ruth?
Yes. Well, congratulations and best of luck getting that moving along quickly.
Thank you all.
And through the
Just wondering,
oh, I
do
apologize.
we have to ask about the 10-day appeal?
What was that?
I'm wondering, it doesn't show this in our agenda, but we usually advise people there's an appeal, a 10-day appeal period.
That's correct.
Someone.
Correct, Mr. Commissioner Bradley. There's a
Yes.
10-day right of appeal from the action tonight. by filing an appeal with the city clerk accompanied by the appropriate fee.
Right.
Thanks for catching that, Commissioner Bradley.
I've forgotten when I was on the RDRC. They had to remind me several times. So I'm conscious of it. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the reports, correspondence, and general information. Does the staff have a report on recent city council actions?
The only thing I have for the commission this evening is just informational that the appeal that would have gone to the city council, the appeal that was filed for 777 Industrial has been withdrawn. And I think a couple of you may have emailed me asking that question, but I wanted to make an announcement here tonight just to make sure everyone was on the same page and understood that that appeal has been withdrawn. So the decision of the Planning Commission stands. And I don't have anything else for council items. Thank you.
Okay. There are Planning Commission comments or reports?
None for
Nothing
me.
from me.
No.
Chair, I could give a brief update. Like many planning staff in the whole Bay Area, I've been attending training sessions on the upcoming housing element and the importance of fair housing and the integration of all kinds of public input in the process of the housing element. And I wanted to say a couple of things on that. One, a robust outreach process is absolutely required and something the state will look for in the upcoming housing element. And that means from all corners of the community and all kinds of stakeholders. And so I wanted to say publicly here, if anyone is, for those of us in attendance here, if you know anybody who has any thoughts at all about housing or how to make housing more accessible and more plentiful in our community of any type, encourage them to participate in the housing element meetings that are happening, that the city's hosting, in order to get involved by submitting comments. It's an important thing for all of the community to weigh in, no matter who you are or what your interests are. So I wanted to say that and make a pitch. And the second thing I'll note is that there are a lot of communities in the area, and I work in Santa Clara County, that are not as far ahead as San Mateo County, and that have not been doing as good of a job as the city of San Carlos. And so I keep bringing back information about how San Carlos is doing things to other communities that are larger than San Carlos. So I just wanted to give our staff kudos for getting ahead of this and doing outreach, months and months ago, and kind of anticipating these issues, frankly, a really long time ago, and being really very proactive in their communications about so many things that are coming up before us. So I just wanted to give a shout out to staff for the good job they're doing and will continue to do. That's all.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, Lisa, is there a correspondence?
Thank you, Chair Ruth. None other than what was forwarded to you this evening in terms of the emails that Lisa Costa-Sanders noted on the projects that were heard this evening. And so with that, I'll move to item D for planning staff comments, reports, and updates of current projects. And I just will kind of segue off of what Commissioner Clemens was noting about the need for a lot of public outreach for the housing element. Thank you for your compliments. And actually, this is a perfect time to share that we are hosting another community workshop for the housing element update. And this is scheduled for Wednesday, August the 11th. And this will be, all of our meetings are important, but this one will be particularly interesting because we are going to be showcasing some case studies on El Camino Real showing the amount of housing that we can get with our current standards, and then what would happen if we adjusted the standards in terms of height, maybe taking a look at parking. So we are adjusting some of the development standards that are going to be able to show us just how much more housing we can get on El Camino Real. And the purpose of the workshop will be to hear from the community in terms of what their support will be for getting more housing on El Camino Real. And of course, El Camino Real and certain segments of San Carlos Avenue are the areas with the maximum development potential in terms of current zoning we have today. So we want to test those areas to see what more we can do, and then really hear from the community about what they will support. So this is a very significant meeting, and we are starting to get the word out. I will send some correspondence to the commission so that you can forward the flyer to your networks, colleagues, friends, neighbors, and associates. That way they can participate in this meeting. So again, that will be Wednesday, August the 11th, virtual community workshop. It will start at 6 p.m. And there's information available on the project website, how to register, etc., which is www.sancarlos2040.org. So lots of workshops happening within the next couple of months. So that's the housing element update for August 11th. And then moving to the other project vision plan that we're working on for the East Side Innovation District Vision Plan. We are having the second study session with the Planning Commission, just a reminder, on August 25th. So this is for anyone who might be listening or watching the playback. August 25th, East Side Innovation District Vision Plan study session with the Planning Commission. That will start at 6 p.m. And then on September the 8th, we will have a study session with the City Council on the East Side Innovation District Vision Plan. So we'll be forwarding and sharing with the council any comments that are coming out of the Planning Commission during your workshop on August 25th. So City Council will hear this in the context of a study session again on September 8th, and that will start at 5:30 p.m. And then for the remainder month of September, we are hoping, we are targeting September 20th for a formal hearing on the vision plan with the Planning Commission. Again, September 20th during your regular meeting, and then targeting the City Council regular meeting of September 27th for their consideration of adoption of the vision plan. So that is our trajectory at the moment. Definitely the August 25th and September 8th study sessions are scheduled, and we are aiming for a Planning Commission formal hearing on September 20th. If anything changes with that timeline, we will be sure to notify you and the public so that they can follow this project along, but these are the dates that we have as of now. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'd like to thank the public who were able to call in tonight. Good meeting. We can adjourn.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good job, David.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.